Donald Trump and his allies and supporters are a clear and present danger to American democracy.
Welcome back to the Sunday Show. I'm Jonathan Capehart. That warning from conservative Judge Michael Luttig at the January 6th hearing is a reminder that the insurrection that began that day is still unfolding. As the Washington Post reported, so far this election year, more than 100 Republican primary winners back Donald Trump's false claims of election fraud. That includes Nevada's Jim Marchant, who this week won that state's Republican primary for Secretary of State, and Pennsylvania's Republican nominee for governor, Doug Mastriano, who was seen outside the Capitol on January 6th. Their primary victories could be a warning sign of what's to come in the general election. For these big lie supporters are now just one election away from being in positions to turn the aspirations of the January 6th insurrectionists into reality. A victory in November would put them in a position to do more, perhaps irreparable damage to American democracy. Joining me now, MSNBC political contributor and analyst Matthew Dowd. He is also author of Revelations on the River, Healing a Nation, Healing Ourselves. Also joining us, Sophia Nelson. She's a former House Republican Committee counsel and is the author of Be the One You Need, 21 Life Lessons I Learned While Taking Care of Everyone But Me. And my Washington Post colleague and MSNBC political analyst, Jennifer Rubin, she is the author of Resistance, How Women Saved Democracy from Donald Trump. Thank you all very much for being here this morning, for coming back to the Sunday Show. Sophia, you're in the middle, so I'm starting with you. Here's what I find interesting about what Judge Luttig said. It was the truth. And his words have been met with incredible silence from the usual loudmouths, McCarthy and Jordan. Why the silence?
Well, Jonathan, look, you know that Representative Jordan and McCarthy, they have been in the Trump camp since the insurrection of January 6th. Don't forget that Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who was pretty angry on January 6th and says that he called Trump out on a pretty terse phone call, went down to Mar-a-Lago just a few weeks later and kissed the Trump ring. So if you all out there in America keep expecting the Republicans who are in Congress right now to do the right thing, you're going to be waiting for a really long time. They have made their bed. They're going to lie in it. They know that the cards and the winds of politics look really good for them going into the midterms in the fall. So they're not going to rock that boat. They know this is wrong. They knew it was wrong back then, Jonathan. But don't expect them to call it out because it behooves them to keep going down the road they're going down. Yeah,
I'm not expecting anything. Matt, talk about how dangerous it is for American democracy that a far-right election denier like Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania is the Republican nominee for governor in Pennsylvania.
Well, to me, as I watched that unfold and I saw the clip of Judge Luttig on this, to me, the most important parts of those words were actually not Donald Trump, were actually Donald Trump and his allies and supporters. And I think a lot of people have missed that. He's basically saying every single Republican running that is a part of the big lie or is in election denialism or doesn't want to do anything to save democracy is a clear and present danger to the country. It's Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. It's the new Secretary of State candidate in Nevada. It's the about to be Secretary of State candidate and governor in Arizona. It is the governor, GOP gubernatorial candidate in Michigan, the Secretary of State candidate in Michigan as a Republican, the Republican candidate for Attorney General in Michigan. It's all throughout the country. And my fear is we barely got through and preserved our democracy in 2020, barely. And it was because of all of those pillars that I mentioned that preserved our democracy and made sure all the votes were counted and make sure the will of the people was in step. The Republicans have figured out in a concerted way, if they knock down those pillars, then 2024 becomes a layup for them. They basically own the refs in the system. They can do what they want. And that's my fear. That's why I have said, every time we do this, we say this is the most important election. I think in my lifetime of being involved in politics in some way since 1976, this year is the most important election, because if the Democrats lose those races and those election deniers are able to win those races and knock the pillars down, we basically don't have a functional democracy in 2024.
And, you know, in the Washington Post today, Dan Balz has a great column writing up not just Judge Luttig's visual testimony, but his written testimony and just the starkness in the warning that he's delivering to the country. Folks should read that. Jennifer, let's talk about New Mexico, because there are county commissioners there who were refusing to certify election results because they don't trust voting machines. Now, thanks to a court order, the results have been certified. But how alarming is it that the commissioners took that action in the first place?
It's shocking. And in addition to the threat to democracy, think about the party that would entrust their democracy to them. Think of all those Republican voters. What are they thinking? What are the people who are campaigning, who are giving money to these candidates thinking? It's really a mass psychosis or a mass revolt against democracy. There may be people like Donald Trump who are so delusional that they believe this nonsense, but the rest of them are cynics. The rest of them are simply riding the wave so that they can obtain office. And they're doing it at the expense of the country. They're doing it at the expense of our democracy. And I have a piece today up in the Washington Post that really talks about the Democrats and the rest of the pro-democracy movement need a game plan. They need to identify these people, particularly the people who are in a position to affect election returns and election counting. They need to identify these people. They need to call them out. Republicans as well as Democrats need to target these individuals so voters know what these people believe in. Sometimes people don't really know a lot about secretaries of state or attorneys general. They understand the threat, and the Democrats running against them have to target. They can't just make this a bygone issue and move on to other things like the economy. They have to identify these people as the clear and present danger. So I certainly hope there's a bit more organization to target these people, particularly the ones who have control over who wins and who loses.
Right. And you know what? I'm glad you brought up your column, Jennifer, because that is a nice segue into the question that I have for Matt. Because in some Republican primaries, I mean, Jennifer talks about a game plan, but it seems like we have seen Democrats cross over to vote for the most extreme candidate in the Republican primaries in the hopes of helping the Democratic opponent in the general election. Am I wrong in thinking that this could backfire? This is a risky game to play.
Well, it's already backfired. Think of a la 2016. There was every Democrat thought, okay, if we can just get Donald Trump, it'll be a layup again. It'll be another layup in this. We'll just go through in this, and ends up Donald Trump's president of the United States. I think it's a huge mistake. I always think this sort of logical voting that you think you can do by doing that usually backfires in this. I think every person, whether they're a Republican, independent, or a Democrat, should be supporting pro-democracy candidates regardless of which primary they are voting in. Even if you're electing somebody and nominating somebody that has a better chance of winning as a Democrat, as a Republican that might defeat a Democrat, that's better for our country. That is much better for our country in this. And that's, to me, we're going to wait on the Attorney General and the Justice Department and all that. And I hope they move, and I hope they move fairly quickly in the aftermath of the hearings. In the end, Jonathan, what's going to hold these people accountable is the only thing that's going to hold them is us. Is November 8th, 149 days from now, is the only thing that's going to hold them accountable.
Sophia, in the minute that we have left, let me have you listen to something Brett Hume said on Fox News earlier this week. We'll talk about it on the other side.
What strikes me about this, Brett, is that if they succeed either by damaging him or staining him such that he is either unable or for legal or political reasons to run again, they might end up finding out that they've done the Republican Party a great service, because I think a great many Republicans think they can't win with Trump at the head of the ticket again. They're afraid of his supporters and don't want to come out against him directly, but they'd like him to go away. If the effect of this committee is to make his possible candidacy go away, I think a great many Republicans would privately be very glad.
So obviously that's Brit Hume, Sophia, talking about Republicans wanting Donald Trump to go away. What do you think about his analysis there?
I think that's spot on. And if you listen to a clip of Lindsey Graham giving a speech this past week, he said out loud, I'm afraid of Donald Trump. We were afraid of Donald Trump, but he made it like it was a good thing, which I thought was horrifying, because they're admitting out loud that they basically are being held hostage by this man, and they don't have the courage and the spine like a Liz Cheney or a Judge Luttig to say something about it. So I think Brit Hume is spot on, and I think they want him to go away, but they're not brave enough to make him go away and to hold him accountable.
Our poor country. Sophia Nelson will return later in the show. Matthew Dowd, Jennifer Rubin, thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday show. And a reminder to tune in on Tuesday for special coverage of the next January 6th hearing at noon Eastern, led by Katie Tur, Andrew Mitchell, and Hallie Jackson, followed by a 2-hour recap special beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern. You see them all right there, right here on MSNBC.